So in the recent months, Tycoon has been adding a lot of different items which really do impact the ground combat quite a lot. That being the C4, the grenade launcher, the KS1, and a lot of different weapons in general, which you must actually have in order to actually be able to compete with most players in this game. And it's been 8 months since I have actually done a video on the best loadout, and a lot of things have actually changed since then. So in today's video, guys, I will actually be going over the best loadout which would really work for the modern meta, and I've seen a lot of you guys actually asking me to make a video like this, so here you are. And by the way, I am currently hosting a giveaway in my Discord server, so make sure to join if you want to win the SU-47 Berkut. So the way in which I'm actually going to be structuring this video is, first I'm going to be covering 2 versions of the main loadout once, since I know not everybody has more loadouts in this game. And I'm first going to be covering a free-to-play loadout for people that do not have any items that actually cost you money, and then right after that, I'll actually be covering a pay-to-win one, which a lot of people have definitely spent tons of Robux getting Explosive Sniper and the Foul Heavy, or even the Barrett. Well, you guys will get your time in the sun in today's video, don't worry about that. But anyway, starting, the first thing which you're obviously going to be needing for the loadout is going to be a strong primary weapon which you can always reliably play with. That could either be a sniper or an assault rifle, it really does depend on your playstyle. But for the sake of this, I'm going to be picking a sniper first, since I am a player that's going to be maining snipers in this game. However, it doesn't always have to be the op. If you guys do have the op, then you could use it. However, if you do not have it, you could really use any snipers which are free to play. It really does depend on which one you actually like. Most of them have very similar stats, so it's really not gonna matter which one you pick. I would probably recommend a long distance sniper over the Kar98K, but it's really up to you. Anyway, the second item of the kit which I'm going to be choosing is of course going to be the riot shield. Everybody uses it. If you do not have it, you're simply going to die and lose most of the exchanges. Now for slot 3 and 4, we're going to be having a strong backup weapon, and in addition to the strong foundation, which is going to be paired up with a sniper, for example. And I'm going to be picking the KS1, which is currently the best available assault rifle, which is actually possible to be obtained for free. Now with this, you could also have a secondary assault rifle if you end up running out of ammo, which will be happening a lot of the time. I would recommend something like the ASVAL, which is currently limited, which you guys could actually buy for a pretty cheap price inside of the trading hub. However, keep in mind that if you do not have this, you could even use something like the MCX Spear. The KS1 and the MCX are basically on par. However, I will probably be recommending the ASVAL because it's my personal preference, and I do believe it's better to get more damage in rather than having an insane fire rate, but it really does depend on the playstyle. Now the next weapon which you could also choose would probably be a shotgun, just for close range exchanges if you're not going to be using assault rifles for this. It really does depend on the player. Most people who are using snipers and assault rifles will most likely not be using a shotgun. However, it can always be useful, which is why I'm going to be bringing it in. Now we have 4 slots left inside of this loadout, and the big question is, what are you going to be using them for? Well, you will actually need some kind of counters to vehicles. Unfortunately, there isn't really a clear counter to tanks, and because of the APS which was added, but the RPG will probably be your best bet. You could choose between the RPG or the Javelin, once again depending on your playstyle which of these you actually have. I prefer the RPG because it's much more versatile for also countering people that are sitting in the air and also trying to kill you in helicopters and planes. You might end up getting a lucky shot sometimes. The Stinger really isn't that viable in the modern meta, plus it does also have a lot of bugs. Now the last 3 slots, I'm going to be picking the grenade launcher for slot 7, and a simple reason why is because it can actually kill vehicles very easily. It does also create a lot of smoke, which can cause the enemy to not know where you are when you know where they are, which could actually be giving you guys a huge competitive advantage inside of a 1v1 against players. And lastly, I'm going to be picking the C4 for slot 8. There's a pretty simple reason why you choose this. The C4 is pretty much the best item in the game in terms of ground combat right now. It's so broken. If you do not have it, then most of the enemies will just end up killing you without a problem. Now lastly, you could pick a grenade, or you could pick a useful item which overall helps you out. However, for the sake of this, I will be picking a grenade, and a lot of people might be wondering why I'm not actually picking something like the support tablet here. The reason why is because it's not a must-have item for a 1v1 or as a player on the ground. You could always put this instead of loadout 2 and loadout 3, which we'll be getting in into in just a second. However, as a free-to-play player, I prefer you guys probably picking the night vision goggles. Nothing else here is really useful in any way except for actually looking cool, and the best vest which you also have available is of course going to be the Vietnam vest. Now, if we actually make this loadout pay to win, there will be some changes which would happen. Instead of the AWP, you would primarily be using the Barrett. This is going to be a very simple choice. Who wouldn't pick the Barrett over the AWP? You're probably crazy if you do not. With this over the KS1, I most likely will suggest you guys to get the FAL heavy, and then the AS Val's place, you would either have the KS1 or the MCX or the AS Val. It really does depend. Now, the AA12's placement would probably not be changing, to be honest. However, you could take it out and put the RPG in its place. Since the FAL heavy will most likely be able to do some insane damage in close range, you're probably not going to need that shotgun in your loadout majority of the time. However, for slot 6, we currently have an empty slot, and what I actually recommend to be putting inside of there is going to be the explosive sniper, and the simple reason why is because it's just overall going to be more versatile than something like the RPG, because the APS does not react to the explosive sniper, and overall it will be able to do just a lot more damage in general. Now, the grenade launcher will also stay in the loadout, and same with the C4, the SIG grenade, or what you pick here is really up to you. And of course, lastly, for the vests, you're either going to be picking the World War II vest or the 2X vest. I think the 2X vest looks cooler, which is why I'm going to be picking it over that. Now, for loadout 2 is where things do get interesting, because a lot of people are actually not sure what they should be using it for. Well, I suggest you guys to be putting a lot of different items which can actually support you in the future. If you're in, for example, stuck in the desert, you're going to be using the support tablet, so I'm quickly going to be filling in the loadout 2 for you guys. What you're always going to be needing is something like the suitcase drone. You're also going to be needing the RC car. Those two are always very useful. I don't see that many people using them, but they're always great to have. If you do not have them, you could just stick in grenades in this loadout. You could also bring the airstrikes with you, and they're not very useful recently because of the fact that for some reason they nerfed the airstrike range, which kind of really sucks. The airstrike is really not used after that. And then with this, you could of course bring something like the javelin if you're going to end up using it. You could bring the stinger. There are just many items which you could bring. Now, lastly, for loadout 3, I will be saving that for all the grenades in the game, so let me quickly just finish up loadout 2. And what I decided to put in there at the end is of course going to be the medkit, the impact grenade, and the landmine. And a lot of people do like to put their medkit inside of loadout 1. However, I do believe that there's not enough space for loadout 1 to actually be able to fit the medkit in there. You could simply just use the medkit from your inventory. It's pretty simple. You really do not need to have it in the main 10 keybinds which you're going to be pressing. However, now lastly, moving into loadout 3, and what I personally just suggest to put in there is really anything you want. Of course, that's going to be consisting of all of the grenades in the game. They're always going to be useful. You're always going to be needing them, so I'm just going to be filling it up with all of the things which I could really find here. I really don't believe that you need a 4th loadout. However, some people do like to use it, so it's really going to be based on your preference and if you're actually going to be spending the medals and the cash in order to do so. But lastly, once you do actually manage to put all the grenades in your loadout, what you're probably going to want to do is just simply put in some extra weapons. So for example, you could bring some SMGs with you, you could bring some backup assault rifles, maybe a shotgun, really anything that you want. This is fully based on your preference, because loadout 1 and loadout 2 are going to be the most important ones. But yeah, for the time being, I will be updating a lot of my rankings for the future, and there will be a lot more things coming, such as the best vehicles to get for free-to-play players, new tier lists, and etc. So do leave some ideas for me in the comment section down below. Anyway guys, thank you all so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for all the gifted members in the recent stream. I have gotten over 180 channel members because of this. Thank you so much.